I try to get everything set. Hold on one second. Let me. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing the live. So it's going to be a little tricky tonight just for me to toggle. So bear with me. Hopefully this does okay. Hold on. Okay, perfect. All right, good to go. All right, wonderful. Welcome in. Welcome in. We are in, I think it's week 7 of our intro to holistic medicine course. This week we're talking all about, oh gosh, it has a mind of its own today. This week we're talking all about stress and how it impacts your digestion, your metabolism, and even your food choices. So we are going to get to discussing that. Bear with me. And forgive me today because I'm not going to be able to see all of the chat. So I may have to check it periodically. Thank you guys for liking the live and sharing it, and also on YouTube liking it as well. So I misplaced my phone, so I have to get it back, and it won't be until later. So I'm kind of winging it without a phone. So pretty wild, but all right. So we'll talk about stress and the impact of digestion. So, first things first, let's talk about what stress actually is. And so, we're going to begin to really break down stress. We've talked about this before. I did a whole webinar on stress. But just to recap, excuse me, stress is the body's a physiological and psychological response. So it's not just a mental thing, it is a physical thing as well. And so it's important to keep this in mind because even though the psychological or the mental may not be interpreting something as a threat, the physical may, and vice versa. So sometimes when we're making changes, right, with our uh, identity or our mental and our emotional state, what can tend to happen is because our nervous system has been kind of hardwired in a sense, it can create a lot of responses as a response to you changing. So just keep that in mind because the triggers aren't necessarily conscious. A lot of times they're very unconscious. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to help support and be more proactive instead of reactive, right? However, we do have short-term stress. So these are little things that pop up that we have to focus on, that we need to deal with pretty quickly. And so these trigger these fight or flight responses. And this is just kind of this immediate need for survival. So, let's say if you get into a car accident or, you are in danger, imminent danger or something, this is where the body's going to move quickly when it's being chased by a tiger. And so it's going to inhibit the immune system, it's going to inhibit digestion, and it's going to do quite a bit of things to conserve energy. Now, when the body and the mind has been going through sustained stress, meaning ongoing stress again and again and again, repeated, that's when the stress hormones like cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine start to elevate. And now all of a sudden, now your insulin levels are thrown off. So your blood sugar gets thrown off and it begins to disrupt metabolic function. Your digestion also is going to slow down because, again, the body thinks that you're being chased by a tiger. And so it's going to say, you know what, if we're being chased by a tiger, we don't need to necessarily digest right now. We can, thank you, Dr. Michelle, we can, spend some time just kind of relaxing, some of these other functions while we focus on some of the immediate danger. And so there is a systemic impact, meaning that there's a multi-organ system involvement from sustained stress. So it's not just the digestive system, it's also the immune system, it's the hormonal system, it's the neurological system, even the musculoskeletal system. Kind of all systems, if you will, really get impacted from long-term systemic stress. So, if you've ever felt like one thing after another, and for whatever reason, whatever you do, you can't seem to get out of that rut, that's when your body really is going to click on to the systemic impact of chronic stress. So this class, we are going to talk about the impact of stress on digestion and metabolism. We're also going to be discussing how stress leads to cravings for fat, sugar, sodium, caffeine, processed foods. We're going to explore the connection between cortisol, insulin, and metabolic dysfunction, so where certain metabolic diseases can generate from. And then we're naturally going to talk about heart rate monitoring, and we're going to talk about how to begin to measure and monitor the nervous system to be able to prevent any stress overdrive. Okay, so many people are in survival mode. Okay, so survival mode comes from all kinds of different things. It can come from financial, it can come from relational, it can come from mental, emotional state, from trauma. And so what happens is when your body is in this constant state of fight or flight, you feel like you've got to go, 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 run, run, run. All the time what happens is you're decreasing those digestive enzymes, because the body says, you know what, we don't need to create these enzymes in order to break down food. Nope, we don't need that, right? Then it goes, oh, you know what, blood flow, let's go ahead and restrict the blood flow to the limbs. So that's where you would have almost like a Raynaud syndrome, where you'd have like cold hands and feet. That's not exactly what it is, but it's interesting to note that oftentimes when I work with patients who have had sustained stress or survival mode, they tend to have cold extremities. Why? Because the body, literally, if you think about it, the heart, the blood starts to go pump to the heart and almost stay there in a sense. It doesn't stay there, but it goes, you know what, we need to conserve this. Let's conserve it to our major organs, right? So our heart being more of a major organ than the digestive one. And then naturally, because we've got enzymatic production decrease, we've got blood flow decrease, there's also a dysbiosis or a bacterial imbalance that can also come in place. And remember, we talked about the gut-brain connection. We talked about all the microorganisms that the gut bacteria create, right? The neurotransmitters in the brain, like your happy hormone serotonin, or your dopamine, which is more of like your reward center. So with all these things happening, the decrease of enzyme, the reduced blood flow, the disrupted microbiome, now the metabolism, which is all those chemical processes, is conserving energy but also slowing your metabolic rate. So if you have been in a fight or flight response for any significant period of time, then this is going to be, where you would be at. So we look at this, let's look at this in the context of society and in racial components, right? So if you think about it in post-traumatic slave syndrome, meaning that when we, were we were in segregation, and then from there we were placed in forced integration, right? So forced integration, you can't go from one day, you're being sold, beaten, raped, all these things, to now the next day we're neighbors and friends and whatever. The nervous system is not going to be able to respond in a positive light. And so when we deal with metabolic conditions, there are a lot more implications than just the physical, meaning that you can have intergenerational trauma that's attached to this in terms of carrying the weight of our ancestors, right? Carrying the trauma of the past, right? Carrying the burden of others, right? And we must be really mindful, if we are a really strong woman, a strong Black woman especially during this time, because people, right, are looking for ways to avoid any kind of culpability or personal responsibility, meaning they don't want to see. Okay, so if they don't want to see, they're going to look to others to dump, right? Because if you're willing to carry and hold on, then we don't have to do the work, or this person doesn't have to do the work because they pass the work on to someone else. So really be mindful. This is a self-care time. For Black women specifically, the 92% were off duty. And so we're off duty, hopefully, to re-regulate our nervous systems and get them back in a healthy state frame of mind. And so what does that look like, right? So when we have chronic stress, we're driving cortisol, we're driving norepinephrine, we're driving epinephrine, and then that's going to dysregulate our insulin, right? So our insulin is there to pick up our blood glucose, right, and regulate our blood glucose. And so our blood glucose is literally the foundation of our health. It's how we're processing sugars, which our body needs sugar, our brain needs sugar, our short-term energy needs sugar, etc. So if we're not utilizing our sugar properly, we're not utilizing our energy properly, a lot of times that's where the weight gain starts to pick up, especially in that midsection, especially if you're going to fat. To be able to compensate, you're going to sugar, you're going to sodium, right? And so also too, as you are in stress, right, the body's in this quickening stage. It goes, you know what, I need to grab something really quick. Let me grab something really fatty because, that's more economical, right? So I'm going to go grab a food bar really quick, or I'm going to go grab, something that looks good, sounds good, etc. So if your blood sugar's been spiking up and down, right, let's say your blood sugar goes really high because you eat something unhealthy, and then you are running, ripping, running, and then you forget to eat for hours and hours and hours, and then boom, your blood sugar crashes down, right? And so now you're hangry, you're feeling irritable, miserable, etc. And then you go and you eat something else kind of sugary or whatever to quickly bring your blood sugar back up, right? That actually is really harmful, that constant up and down and up and down. That is part of what creates that insulin resistance. So we definitely want to be mindful of that. Let me just make sure that there's no questions in the chat. Let's see. Oh, I just saw something that popped up. There was somebody on YouTube that I saw. Hello, YouTube. Bear with me. Yeah, it's like so much different without my phone. Good to see you over there. All right, oh, come on. There we go, back. Okay, cool. Let's see. Hey, Salsa. Hey, Fit Mom CEO. Is there one of these for radiology? What do you mean, is there one of these for radiology? What do you mean? Can you clarify that, Jay? Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Let me go back to here. I'll check shortly with your question. Okay, perfect. Back indeed. Okay, so again, let's talk about stress. So again, I did a whole 1.5 hour webinar on stress. I'm behind on my landing pages for some of my other webinars just because I've been working on the collectives and different things. So I will get it together, rest assured. Slow and steady wins the race. All right, so in that webinar, I go over the 12 types of stress. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I'm going to go over the ones that apply to this particular subject matter. So remember, stress comes from all different places. Stress comes from environmental, stress comes from physical, emotional, nutritional, all sorts of places, right? Relational. And so we want to look at cognitive and emotional because your mind and your emotional health is actually what creates your action, which we'll talk about shortly. And so Your physical stress naturally is going to affect your recovery. It's going to affect your energy levels. So you're not going to necessarily want to be as resilient and bounce back. Chemical stress, which if you're eating a lot of processed foods, it is going to dysregulate your hormones, meaning that, all of those chemicals, a lot of them are endotoxins, which are toxic to the endocrine system. So it is going to send your hormonal system through up and down spikes, not to mention your insulin and your glucose. Because even if you're eating, it doesn't necessarily mean that your body is interpreting that as food. You know what I'm saying? And so that leads to nutritional stress because then you're depleting. So even if you eat, I have a 21-year-old daughter. And when she was young, she would, like, let's say we were in the grocery store or something, and she'd be like, Mom, can you make this or that when you get home? And I'm like, oh, Gabrielle, I thought you had already eaten. Because, she was, at that time, she was like 16, 17, right? So she was like, yeah, I ate, but I'm still hungry. And I go, oh, I said, but you ate like 30 minutes ago. She goes, yeah. I go, what do you think that means? Like after 30 minutes? And she just rolled her eyes and goes, because the food was toxic, because of course she's my daughter. So she's heard it all. So, but really that's the sentiment, right? Because if you eat food that's toxic, that's not living, that's not healthy, you are putting yourself under nutritional as well as chemical stress. And then that is going to affect your physical and your emotional, right? You're just not going to have enough gas in the gas tank to actually be able to function. Hey, touted kisses. So definitely make sure of that. Okay. Okay, so how does stress interact? So let's talk about your diet and your food, because a lot of times people think your food is just your food, and your food is not just your food. I wish that it were just your food. But let me tell you, after 20 years of 20 plus at this point, studying food, studying human behavior, studying lifestyle change, how people create results, all these things, health optimization, like I can go on. Humans, right? This is what I've learned. Okay, so people get into a poor diet cycle, right? So meaning that they get into these habits, these really unhealthy habits where they're grabbing this, they're grabbing that. It's not planned, it's just kind of happenstance, it's throwing stuff together. Well, this creates metabolic stress and metabolic imbalance because you're going through those blood glucose strikes, ups and downs and ups and downs. Not to mention, how do they usually sell food? High fat, high sugar, high sodium. So your fat's all over the place, your sodium's all over the place, your sugar's all over the place, your protein is definitely deficient. And so because you're not conscious of what it is you're putting in. So if you're not conscious of what gas you're putting in your gas tank, you're just kind of pulling up to the tank and, Russian roulette. That's pretty much what you're doing with your body every single day when you're not conscious, present, and planning your food. And so naturally, cognitive impairment ensues because, you're not getting the nutrients, you're not getting the energy, sleep begins to suffer. You see kind of the effects, right? And then over time, once your sleep starts to struggle, and remember, sleep is set up in three components. It's falling asleep, staying asleep, and waking up refreshed. I have a whole webinar on sleep that I did and a whole program I did on sleep, because sleep is a foundational piece. If you're not getting good sleep, it's going to be very difficult for you to execute on any sort of lifestyle change. Okay. So another thing that stresses people is financial burden. Okay. So, any sort of impending, whether it is perceived or it is real, right? Because sometimes we can have perceived financial worries that don't actually ever materialize, but we're so afraid of the what if that creates that emotional response like fear or anxiety, right? So again, oh my gosh, I'm really stressed about money, so I'm going to scrimp here and I'm just going to scrimp here. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they scrimp on their food. Now, I really teach people, this is the time to get off the food supply and return back to nature, right? And so growing your own food, community gardens, hydroponic. I have a whole training on this. There's also some really great professors on TikTok and various apps that teach horticulture and various different things. And so not getting quality enough nutrition and the food going sky high like crazy. Like I'm partially from Southern California, and I went to school out there, and I was a single mom out there, and I worked like 1,000 jobs while I went to school, while I was raising my daughter, like all the things, right? And I had to make a lot of sacrifices. Unfortunately, one of the sacrifices I never made was food, right? And again, like SoCal's really, super costly. The one thing is though you have full growing seasons, and so when I went to Virginia, I was not aware that they have abbreviated growing seasons. So in Virginia, they only grow certain periods because of the weather, but they also would systemically pay some of the farmers not to grow to control the supply. Okay, so it's all, it's all fun and games. So I would say for financial autonomy when it comes to your food, coming off of that standard food supply, and really going into more of like community supported agriculture, farmers markets, etc. Now when it comes to money is a lack consciousness. So a lot of times it comes from a core belief of I'm not enough. So especially if you get money and then as soon as you get it, it's out the door. That is clearly a correlative to I'm not enough as a core belief. So try that one on. Okay, so now we have sustained pressure. Okay, and sustained pressure happens over time, right? So, and you ever notice where like when you first feel like you are losing it or not being able to keep up with the demand, now all of a sudden it feels like you have less and less time, right? So less and less time, that constant cycle of less and less time creates more of that burnout cascade because it creates more of that time pressure that prevents recovery. So if I'm like, oh my gosh, and again, people will scrimp on their sleep. So they'll go, oh my God, I don't have enough time. Let me stay up for another hour, 2 hours, work, and I'm going to obviously not go to sleep during that time frame, right? So now then, you get back into that, now your sleep is impaired, now you're tired, now you're over caffeinating and all of those things. Yeah, so soft landing, I want you to stay right where we're at, okay? So here's what I'm going to say. When I go over information, it is very easy to want to either skip ahead or not be present with the information at hand, right? So I'm going over a lot of information and I want to really be present to what we're going over in the moment. So we'll get to the solution in a moment, but we have to actually sit with the tension of the problem. Okay, a lot of times we don't want to feel uncomfortable. We don't want to look at ourselves. We don't want to be self-aware. We don't want to look at our habits and behavior. We want to fix it. We have a compulsion to fix it and make it better and soothe it, right? But that's not going to give you relief. Okay, and so here's the thing. If we don't really get to the impact of it, meaning you don't get to feel the impact of it and you can't see, wow, this is really making an impact in my life, then any sort of remedy you try to apply to it will not last. Because you're not coming from an intrinsic motivation. You're coming from an extrinsic motivation. You're coming from a space of trying to appease, trying to fix, trying to make something happen outside of yourself, rather than going into the introspection of it and really self-examining. How is my sleep? Am I planning my food? Am I being mindful of my protein? What's my relationship with money? What's my relationship with my food, right? What's my relationship with my time, right? I have an amazing relationship with time, let me tell you, right? And here's why. Because I can utilize time as a tool, right? Just like money, just like anything else, right? And I have empowerment over my time. I don't feel at the effect of my time. I don't feel like my time is overloaded, even if I'm not right on time, right? So, our appointment was at 7, right? Or our class is at 7. I'm like trying to get my slides in order, right? And I'm looking at the time. I'm like, okay, it's 7:05, it's 7:15. Okay, there is nothing in my space about that other than the fact of I know it's going to work out in perfect order, regardless of appearances, whether I believe this or not. Now, with that being said, I am responsible for my time. I don't just allow it to run, right? But at the same instance, I'm not going to resist in the moment if time is not allowing, right? I'm not going to stress myself out internally if the time is going by and I'm not on top of it, right? So remember, well, you may not be aware, but I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so I feel like I've recovered for the most part. And so when it came to time, when it came to finances, when it came to nutrition, for so many years, and even my fitness, everything had to be perfect, 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 perfect. Perfect, 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 right? And if it wasn't perfect, I felt shame. I would beat myself up. I would, self-deprecate, and it would be very subtle, right? It wouldn't be like I'm, beating myself up or anything, but it would be, little, oh God, I can't believe you did that. Oh God, that was so dumb. Okay, and that mental diet, right? Over and over and over and over and over again. Irvine actually, so OC. So, over and over and over again, telling myself, hey, I popped in your live earlier today, Harriet, and then popped out. I definitely will stay, another time when I have some time. So, if I'm telling myself, right, oh gosh, I don't feel good. Oh, let me treat myself with this food. Or, if I go, oh, you know what, I'm not going to be able to figure this out financially, or, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than me, or, oh gosh, I just keep running out of time. Oh, these patients are getting so upset with me. I keep going over my time. All of these things create judgment and stress within self, which are not going to help. So I'm going to teach you how to be more efficient. So we're going to have to come to peace with our food, with the relationship we have with our food. We're going to have to come to peace with our relationship that we have with our money, and we're going to have to come to peace with our relationship that we have with our time. These are three big areas, right, that will be impacted with our food, believe it or not. And so we'll kind of see that. All right, let me pull this back up. Okay, everybody on YouTube's good. All right, so why stress leads to cravings. So we talked about it, right? We've talked about your insulin going up, your blood sugars going up, your cortisol going up. When your cortisol is produced by your adrenal glands. Your adrenals are your stress glands. They sit above your kidneys and your low back, right? So not only are they producing cortisol, that cortisol inhibits acetylcholine, which is going to affect digestion, right? But then your body's going, oh, wait a second, but I need nutrients. I need, energy. So that's where the sugar cravings, because it wants that quick energy. It wants to deplete itself. At the same time, right? Also, stress will deplete magnesium and also deplete zinc as well. So that's where chocolate cravings tend to come in, right? And then as you have that higher cortisol over an extended period of time, that's where you have the ghrelin and the leptin, right? Which is that resistant fat that comes in, where you have that cortisol belly around your midsection, which unfortunately I had for quite some time, because again, I was a doctor through the last Trump presidency, through the pandemic, and that was nuts. Because there was so much misinformation, there was so much fear, anxiety, stress, like it was just insane. So that's why I'm taking more of a proactive stance in this particular presidency, so to get the information out to people. So we need to be on rest, right? At least Black women need to be on rest. I don't know about the rest of y'all. But, because our nervous systems literally just can't handle it anymore. We have carried the load for the entire country for far too long. And so now they got what they wanted. Congratulations. Enjoy. And right now we're gonna get our hot bodies. We're gonna get our hot bank accounts. We're gonna get our, hot men, women, whatever we want, our kids, if we want kids. We're gonna be building our castles. We're gonna be minding our own business, right? And so as we begin to pull our energy back from all the people that we've given it away to willingly or unwillingly, right? We begin to come back to center and come back to self, right? And that's what I had to start doing. I had to literally start leaving the country because when, unfortunately, and I'm going to do some videos about this, when the healthcare system is failing, and you are an empathetic person within the healthcare system, and you're willing to listen and you're willing to help and you are brilliant, people will lean on you like crazy. But unfortunately, there's a very transactional relationship in healthcare where people actually don't see healthcare providers as people or as a relationship. They see it as more of a customer service transaction. So I give you money or I give you my insurance card, and then you're going to give me health or whatever, right? Health or losing weight or whatever your health goal is. And that paradigm is because of conventional medicine, because conventional medicine makes it where the patient is a passive vessel. So the patient, hey Tiffany, so the patient doesn't have to take an active role in their health care, right? And so in holistic medicine, so they're kind of in that same mindset coming over to holistic medicine, angry, right? That, there's a clinical practice, there's a way that we do things, there's a methodology, there's a boundary. We're not just going to give you supplements or give you testing or all this stuff just because you think you need it and you've WebMD'd it, right? So there becomes a lot of friction, right, in the relationship. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'll be releasing some content about that this week. So I'm kind of excited about it because there's just a lot of nuance to the healthcare system. I'll probably do an article for Psych Today for my column. All right, so back to the grind here. Okay, so what do we do when, we're running out of time, we're running out of nutrition, we're running out of sleep, we're running out of money? We reach for these fast, quick fixes, right? So what's a quick fix? Caffeine, coffee. I remember I used to operate on 6 shots of espresso every day. Yes, 6 shots of espresso every day. I am not even kidding. And that is how I would get through my crazy day. I would wake up, I'd, do my morning workouts, and espresso. And so that is not healthy because naturally the adrenal glands create that caffeine dependency because now they're exhausted, they're mineral depleted, they're just totally just toast, right? And so what do you reach for? You reach for the processed carbs. You reach for, the protein bars. You reach for the things that are really quick to create that temporary comfort because you have to get back to work. You have to get back to what you're doing, right? And healthcare is the worst for self-care. I mean, absolutely the worst environment for self-care because we are literally trained to not care for ourselves and to constantly just give and give and give and give and give, right? It's a real interesting dynamic. Hey, Naga. Hey, Malik. Okay, so this is interesting. Chronic stress is associated with 40% increased risk of metabolic disorders, according to Harvard Medical School. So chronic stress is very much associated. And it's interesting, there's another stat that I pulled that 90% of office visits are due to chronic stress, right? So a lot of times people are stressed and have symptoms, and then they go into their conventional doctor's office with the symptoms of stress and burnout and all these things that we talked about. And again, the conventional doctor doesn't know what to do because they're waiting for a disease. There's no disease of stress, right? They may say, oh, here's a Xanax, or, go to a psychologist or whatever, or a psychiatrist, but they're not necessarily going to get into these cycles. They're not going to talk to you about how's your, self-care routine, how's your time management? How is your, meal planning? How is your sleep? Like, what aspects of your sleep? Like, the level of detail to understand how these systems work together is really missing. And so that's where in my practice, I really started, again, teaching patients, hey, Trinity, teaching patients slowly but surely, what they needed to do. Because, if you are operating in these fight or flight modes, right, where you're reaching for the caffeine, you're reaching for the sugary things, it's unrealistic to now say, out of nowhere, you're going to change up, right? Out of nowhere, now all of a sudden, you're going to be, a raw food vegan. It's just not going to happen. And so me coming from California to Virginia was very sobering because, again, it went from like, oh, okay, so you're only eating fast food twice this week. Yay. Because just the environment and where, the just the growth and all of that really plays in. So all of these things play in. It's not always just your fault. Sometimes it is the environment that is structured in a way, and if you are not present and aware of a different way, you get stuck in it. I mean, quite frankly. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now let's focus on two aspects of stress, right? Cognitive and emotional, okay? So let's start your thinking, okay? So now you're overthinking, mental overwhelm. I've got so many things to do. I know I need to eat healthy. I've got this responsibility, that responsibility, this responsibility. Oh my gosh, I don't have time, right? Oh, you know what? I'm just going to work through lunch. I'm not going to focus on that. Oh, I'm going to grab something on the go. I'm going to be eating in my car. Oh my gosh, I get a bad phone call. Oh gosh, I'm really frustrated. Oh, now we're going to go to cocktails, nice fine dining, right? I'm just going to go day in and day out and day in. Oh, I need a mental break. Oh, here, let me scroll on TikTok mindlessly for an hour. Oh, my blood sugar's in the toilet again. Let me order something from Uber, because I don't feel mentally, available to cook anything, right? Even though it's silly because you've got all the things in the refrigerator and you've got nothing but time, and it takes less time for you to go in and make a little something than it would be for you to order and come to your door. But it's the mental overload and it's the mental fatigue, hey, melanin, that really bogs a person down, where they start to tell themselves all of these things, where then they let themselves off the hook, right? And so we have to begin in the mind. If we do not begin in the mind, there won't be the result change, because your thoughts then trigger your emotional responses, which then trigger your actions, behaviors, lifestyles, habits, and then eventually lifestyles. All right, hold on one second. Okay, so remember we were talking about the nervous system, right? So when our bodies are responding to stress, right, we have a parasympathetic or a sympathetic response, right? So our brain tells our body either to shut down digestion or to support digestion. So if we're in a constant fight or flight or survival state, we're not going to be properly digesting, because our stress hormones are going to be sky high. And like I said, the cortisol is going to be inhibiting acetyl-CoA, which is the doorway of metabolism. The parasympathetic rest and digest, it does the opposite naturally. It's going to help to relax that vagal nerve and support digestion, support assimilation, support healing. So hopefully you guys have been tracking your food. And remember, we talked about last week different methodologies of tracking. So if you find that you are in a reactive or impulsive state, I want you to track your food as you're eating it to slow down, right? Because I want you to be more intentional and more mindful about what it is that you are consuming, okay? I also want you to be really present to your mental diet. What is your mental diet? That's what you're telling yourself every single day. So I used to power lift, and I would have to wake up and go to the gym at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And let me tell you, in the winter time, oh, thank you, Trinity. In the winter time, all right, in Virginia at like 40, 30, 20 degrees. Okay. Hey, Faisal, getting out of my warm, cozy bed and going outside and whatever weather and going to the gym and, going and picking stuff up and putting stuff down was just not the vibe, right? So what I would do to get myself motivated, because again, that alarm goes off at 5. It's like, oh God, do I want to get up? Do I not want to get up? You're talking to yourself, right? You're telling yourself things, right? So what I would do is I put Britney Spears, Work Bitch, on my phone, and I would put it like way far away, so I'd have to actually get up out of bed, right? And why Britney Spears? Why that song? I'm not even a Britney Spears fan, but that particular song is, you want a Maserati, you better work, bitch. You want a beach body, you want a bikini body, you better work, bitch. And so that's what helped me to get my butt out of bed, because I knew if I didn't have any motivation, I'm sitting here thinking, this California girl is in the South, okay? I've got to, roll myself out of bed. And then I lived in the quote unquote good part of town, what I'm talking about. So I'm in like a super Republican, gym. Like the necks are redder than this particular slide here. So, I'm not only having to haul into there, but then I'm having to go in there and compete with MAGA in the dang gym. And of course, I'm deadlifting 250 pounds and they're looking at me like, this girl, So, there was a lot that went into it, right? So any motivation that I could have, right, I would have in order to get myself just that 1% better. So it's not about what you did today. It's not about what you did tomorrow or yesterday, It's making sure that tomorrow, right, or today, you're 1% better than you were yesterday. Okay, so this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's going to take a lot of time. You're going to have to put, steps in place. You're going to fail a lot. And here's how I know this, because I've done all this work, right? And so there's a lot of nuance to it that you wouldn't necessarily be aware of until you get on the court and you start doing it, right? So until I started tracking my food, right, I didn't realize how disconnected I was from my food. Until I started tracking my heart rate, I didn't know, wow, gosh, I'm in a chronic stress load all the time. Until I started to look at my pH levels, I didn't go, wow, gosh, I'm like driving acidity, right? And so the actual objective analysis helps you to get outside of yourself and allows you to look at data. So something outside of you, something outside of me, to actually measure your progress, to see what it is you're doing and how you're doing it, so you can make changes quickly. Remember, over 70% of the immune system is housed in your digestive system, making stress a key trigger for inflammatory process. It will affect your secretory IgA, which is your frozen mucosal barrier in your GI tract. So it does strip out those B complexes, zinc, etc., like we had talked about. That particular reference is from NIH, if you're looking for that. All right, so how stress reduction actually improves your metabolism. So first things first, so it's not about the gym membership. It's not about throwing out all your unhealthy food. It's not about doing any of those things. It's about really starting with your mindset. I cannot stress this enough, because if you don't make up your mind that this, number one, if you don't feel the heat of what the impact of this is, in addition to making up your mind that you're ready to do something different and have that internal motivation, it cannot be because of your kids. It cannot be because of your spouse. It cannot be because of your job. It cannot be because of anybody outside of yourself. It will not work. You will not sustain it. So if you're doing this for other people, we first have to examine why you're leaving yourself out of your life. So when I built my practice, I wanted to bring back the old school family doctor, right? And I wanted to, and I did this unconsciously, but wanted to build this really kind of selfless practice, right? Well, the selfless practice met COVID, and then all of a sudden, whoop, boundaries. What are those? Don't call me at 10 o'clock at night. What is your problem? And so just, going through so much of that, right? And so taking a step back and assessing your life from a very objective viewpoint is going to be your best strategy, because we want to find the most efficient way. So like, for instance, I've got all these videos I have to post on TikTok, and it's not very efficient because the way I have to load them in and all that kind of stuff. And so I can sit and toil in my mind about how I'm going to do it and get overwhelmed and I'm going to stress out and all that stuff. Or I can put down all my tasks and look at it and go, okay, what's the most efficient route for me to do? And I can start playing around with that, right? So throw your food on the court, right? So where's your food right now? What are you doing with it? Because if we don't start to get a handle on what you're actually doing, we're not going to be able to make changes. Okay. So over time, as we begin to work with you on your heart rate, your stress level, your food, your pH levels, what happens is your digestion's going to improve. So your gut microbiology is going to balance out. Your blood sugars are going to stabilize. Your, weight. I mean, I dropped probably 50, 60 pounds leaving the United States and taking a year off of work. Unreal. And it reduces your risk of chronic disease and chronic illness, and also increases your energy for sure. So we want to reduce our stress so that we're more in flow state. So that's why I teach morning flow, because that proactivity where, you wake up in the morning, you meditate, you do some movement, you do mantra, you do journaling, you plan your day, that really sets the tone for the day. So no matter what happens, which things happen today that were beyond my control, lots of things like losing my phone, I did not freak out, right? I was like, okay, all right, that's not going to be super easy to get a new iPhone down here to the Caribbean, but we'll figure it out, and taking it in stride, right? Why? Because I did my morning flow this morning, so I'm being more proactive instead of reactive, because as you start to gain more mental clarity, as you start to lower those cortisol levels, as you start to balance your blood sugar out, and the fiber and gut microbiology begin to restore, now your health is going to continue to develop. Let's see. Can someone tell me what week? This is week 6. And then we started, I think, at like 7:15. I think that's when we started. Okay. Back to the grind. Okay. So how do we create a result? So let's say, first we have to do personal inventory. We have to assess what's going on. We know some of the problems, right? Hopefully. We're looking at our time. We're looking at our mindset. We're looking at our stress load. We're looking at our financial health. We're looking at these particular pinpoint areas because we know that those areas are going to hem us up in this process, right? So we want to look at our world objectively. How am I doing with my sleep? How am I doing with my time? How am I doing with my water? How am I doing with my finances, right? And so I'm going to assess not from a place of judgment, but from a place of awareness, right? And so let's say I want to create a result with my food, right? But I'm not sleeping well. Well, that's not going to work as well, because if I'm not well rested, right, I'm not going to be motivated to prepare food, right? So I need to prioritize the rest. So maybe I need to spend a long weekend just sleeping most of the weekend to catch up on my sleep. Not that I can catch up on my sleep. And then Sunday, I'm going to prepare my food for Monday, right? So we do need to be mindful and present and be proactive, right? So let's say we are totally dehydrated. Again, you can live, I think it's up to like 45 days without food. And I'm not talking about breatharians or anything crazy. So 45 days without food, I think it's only like 4 or 5 days without water. Okay. So if water needs to be like first and foremost primary, and we need to get our water to half our body weight in ounces. So if that's the result, we're going to observe how much water am I drinking. Do I have a system in place for that? So I know that I need to drink about 80 ounces of water, right? I have a little 16-ounce container, right? A little glass container that I like. So I fill that up probably about 8 times during the day, right? And so making sure that I'm getting all of my ounces as long as I'm drinking my little bottles. It's easy. I've got the bottle. I know how much it is. Not every single day do I drink all of my water. No, which is very interesting in the Caribbean, because if you don't drink your water, you definitely SOL out here, but I'm aware of it and I'm conscious of it and I'm practicing it every single day. So I have a thought about it. I put something in place, right? My emotion, I'm pretty neutral about my water per se, but what's interesting about water is it is a conductor of emotion. So if you are not wanting to deal with or process your emotion, you oftentimes will go dehydrated. You oftentimes will not drink as much water. Oh, awesome, Angela. So okay, let's talk about being behind. So everyone joins the party when they join the party, right? So I've designed this class to be like a modular class. So like you can pick it up. Each class is like individual, but they build on top of each other. So you just catch it where you catch it, and then you kind of follow the path and then circle back at the beginning. So I hope that helps. The first few weeks really were about ethics, we're about foundations, we're about suppression of holistic medicine, subjective data, which is a lot of nuance. So do make sure you do the questionnaire, and objective data, which is like a lab, something outside of me, something outside of you. So that should get you up to speed. And then last week was all about nutrition. And then this week is all about stress. So stress, nutrition together. All right. So in order to create a result, we have a thought. Okay, I want a beach body, right? Then we have an emotion, but I don't like being cold, right? Outside, right? But we still have to have this action in place. So how do we create this action, right? When we have an emotion and we have a thought that's telling us no. So if I have a thought that says, I don't want to be cold, but I have to get out in the cold in order to go work out, right? I'm either going to push past that resistance, right? I'm going to ignore my thoughts, and I'm going to intrinsically kick on and motivate myself to make sure that action happens, right? Or I'm going to talk myself out of it, okay? And say, no, not today. You're going to do it another day, right? So this is what I mean about keeping a mental diet. Okay, so this is why journaling is really helpful. I want you to really start to get curious about what you tell yourself. You first have to decide what result you want, whether it's increasing your water, improving your sleep, improving your nutrition, whatever, right? So we first want to look at what result we want to create with our health. And then we want to get all of our thoughts about that particular thing. So it's probably good to get a piece of paper and just brainstorm your thoughts about it. All your thoughts about water. I don't like drinking it. It's, stressful, whatever your thoughts are on water, right? With food, what you don't like. I don't like to track food. Food is boring. Food is annoying. I wish I didn't have to eat it. I've heard it all. Trust me. Or then we have, with your stress, some people love to be stressed. Some people are addicted to stress. Some people love drama. And so if you are somebody who loves drama and loves stress, your nervous system is now dysregulated, meaning your nervous system, your nervous system now is hardwired to be stressed out. so you will look for situations to stress you out and also to sabotage yourself from moving forward. So be careful with that, right? And so your actions, right? Your actions want to be deliberate, consistent over an extended period of time. Okay, we want to make sure, thank you again. Exactly. We want to make sure we're deliberate and actionable, which means that it's going to feel a little boring. Okay, because if we're used to all this excitement, right, and all this dopamine and all these sugar crashes up and down, and all of the water dehydration, mineral catastrophe that we're creating with our bodies. Our bodies are going to need a real detox from what we're doing to it. So just keep that in mind. It's all interconnected. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. It's not just, 1, 2, 3, click. There actually is effort involved. There actually is, change that's involved. There's resistance involved. There's I don't want to involved. This is where the teenager shows up, right, and wants to burn it down. This is where the inner child shows up and she goes, no, I don't want to do that. This is where all of the unhealed wounds start to show up on the court. So people wonder why we don't get a result, right? Why I set an intention with my food, why I set an intention with my weight, why I set an intention with my stress, why I set an intention with whatever, right? My finances, whatever, my time, whatever, and it doesn't come to fruition. Why? Because it's either our mental diet, what we're telling ourselves, it's either our emotional state, our current or past state. So some people are living in the past about what has happened, and they haven't been able to either forgive themselves or other people, which keeps them stuck and stagnant in the present, right? Because the past is done, it never comes. The future is an illusion, it never comes. The only thing you have is the present moment. So if you want to create something in the future tense, you have to be powerful in the present, which means you have to be connected in the present. Some people do not want to be connected in the present because if we slow down, then we start to feel, and we don't want to feel. That's what happened during COVID, right? The world stopped. And all of a sudden, when the world stopped, people were not ready for all that stuff because everybody was used to running, ripping, and running. Some people didn't even see their spouses, didn't even like their spouses, and all of a sudden now they're having to co-work with them, right? The divorce rate went up like crazy. And so why is that? Because people are avoiding, repressing, or denying. And then they're self-medicating. They're self-medicating with alcohol. They're self-medicating with, MJ. They're self-medicating with sugar. They're self-medicating with sex. They're self-medicating with work. They're self-medicating because they don't want to deal with their emotions to change their actions. And so, again, you cannot skip over the emotions. I know we want to because they don't feel good, but it has to begin with your mental diet first, and then you're going to try for an action, okay? So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go, okay, great, I'm super inspired. I want to create this result. Yay, here we go, right? And then, right, you're going to try these actions. And maybe you do well at first, and maybe, it's all fine and good. But eventually, the rubber's going to meet the road, and it's going to become challenging, right? And what is that challenge? That is whatever emotional state needs to shift, okay? So whatever you are holding on to. So we are human beings having a human experience. It's who we choose to be in any given moment, okay? Thank you, Tatted Kisses. I'm going to address that in a minute. So it's who we get to be in any given moment. So it's our way of being, okay? So if I choose to be, right? Let's say I choose to be productive. I choose to be thoughtful. I choose to be ambitious. I choose to be motivated, right? And then as I'm choosing to be these things, all of a sudden, right, life starts to create resistance, right? Things don't go well. I lose my phone. This happens, that happens, this happens. And it's an opportunity. So, full disclosure, I lost my phone. And then I had to go to immigration to renew my paperwork. And then I went to immigration, and they're so strict here about dress code or whatever, even though it's hot as blazes. I don't even understand, but whatever. So anyway, I go into the building, and the little old ladies own the place. So anyway, so I go into the building, and they're and the guy's whatever, no big deal. And I get up to the lady, and I hand her my stuff, and she looks at my outfit, and she's like, nope. And I'm like, really? And then she's like, yeah. And she's like, go downstairs and go get a skirt. And I'm like, okay. So I go downstairs. I ask the guy for a skirt. And then he's like, oh, $5. and you don't understand, cash is like such a commodity in the Caribbean. So I'm like, I'm not gonna burn this my $5. Like, no. So then I'm like, oh gosh, so I'm walking away. So I've lost my phone, right? So I can't call my husband. I've now been turned away. I need to take care of my immigration thing because it's gonna take more time, right? And money and whatever, right? So I'm walking away. So literally I said to myself, I go, okay, right? I feel the disappointment coming. I feel the 5-year-old wanting to literally just start screaming, yelling, crying, come hold me, mommy, like all of it, right? And then I take a breath. Hey, Solid. I take a breath and I go, I got this, right? I got this. So I take a breath, I go to the little coffee shop, I get an espresso, because I haven't had one in forever. I get an espresso, right? I'm like, okay, I get on the Wi-Fi, right? I call my husband on the WhatsApp, right? I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna react. I'm not going to stress myself. I'm going to sit and I'm going to focus. Oh, thank you. I'm going to sit and I'm going to focus on what it is I need to do in this moment. Right? I'll give my emotions all the space that they need, right? And I'm going to get myself centered and get myself connected and go, okay, what can I do? I go, oh yeah, that's right. I find my iPhone. That's right, technology. So I put those things out. I call my husband, hey, can you call the phone? Okay, good. All right. Now I need to go get some outfit to appease this lady. So I'm like, okay, where can I go to get something cheap? I go in, I'm like, okay, that's fine or whatever. So then I go back to the office, right? I look literally like a homeless person. Like I can't, like, thank God there's no like paparazzi around. Anyway, so I've got my like total hobo get up, right? And they're laughing hysterically. And I get up there, right? And then they're talking about Trump. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, So all these things, right? But what was so great? And then I got up to the, so I do the whole immigration thing. They had mercy on me. Thank God they didn't overcharge me, because I've paid some money. So then I get through all that, right? And then I get up to the class and then my card declines, right? And of course I can't check what's going on with my phone. I can't do anything. I have nothing, whatever. So I go, thank you so much, right? But at this time, I was so just elated at the fact that I was able to emotionally overcome that initial disappointment, that initial, cast me away with my short shorts, bask away, wretched American, whatever, so, because it's, British colonies, so they're much more conservative than us booty shaking and twerking over here. Anyway, so, I'm like, okay, by the time I got there, at the point I looked at the lady, I said, I'll be back. We have our monthly meetings anyway. And she laughed and it was beautiful, right? It was absolutely beautiful. And it was because I changed my mind. Okay. That was the only thing. And even going back home, I had this great just gratitude and peace and happiness, not because everything worked out. Clearly, I still have to go back and do the whole thing, but the fact that I was able to overcome that, disappointment. And disappointment is a big one, is a real big one. When you've had the rug pulled out from you over and over and over again, that sting of disappointment can take you out. Right? And that's the thing, is these raw emotions, powerlessness, helplessness, hopelessness, sadness, all of these loneliness, all of these emotions that are very familiar, that are from the past, that are unprocessed, are going to show up in your present moment as resistance when you try to change. Because everything based in the present moment is based off of your subconscious mind. Right? Your subconscious mind is your experiences, perceptions of those experiences, beliefs, and core beliefs from the past 0 to 8 years old. So that feeling of disappointment, right, was probably my 8-year-old feeling very disappointed, feeling let down, feeling hurt, feeling abandoned, feeling all these things, feeling cast away, feeling rejected, all of these things, right? So I could have totally had a 5-year-old moment in the middle of Castries, right? People probably would have looked at me like I was crazy. More than likely, I would have been arrested for real. So, that they, just because they don't deal with emotion here, they'll look at me like, what's going on with this girl? So here's the thing, right? I get to choose my emotional state. Okay. Where can you pay for your cert? There in the emails, there's a little link that says Wellness Collective. If you send me an email or DM or whatever, I can send it back to you. Okay, so we're gonna really be mindful of our mental diet, and then we're gonna be present to our emotional state and how that's impacting our actions. So now we're really getting into it because there's several things going to be happening all at once. We're going to be checking our water, we're going to be checking our food, we're going to be checking our pH levels, and we're going to be checking our heart rate. We're going to be present to our mental diet, we're going to be present to our emotions. Are we exhausted yet, right? Believe it or not, all of these things can be accomplished in a very easy way, right? We're just going to do it gently, easily, effortlessly, and we're going to try. So Touted Kisses talked about failure. So let me reframe failure out. Failure is a breakdown of performance. That's all failure is. It's an effort. And let me tell you, when I got this, I went to a workshop. I've done a lot of trainings, and I went to a leadership training in New York, and it was a part of this big year-long crazy, leadership training that I did where you get coached like crazy, and it's insane. They tell you on the first day your life will not fit into this program, right? And so me at the time was super type A perfectionist. Everything had to be written down. Like I was just in it for toast or whatever. So when we got to this weekend, like these big weekends of doing all this like really big introspective work, we had this reframe, right, of being cause in the matter, right? So being cause in the matter of your own life, right? Making sure that you stand up for yourself. If there's no one, there's you, right? You're going to be the last one or the first one, right? So here's the challenge with that. If you have been over parentified as a child, which many Black women have, right? Black girls, there is a thing with that. There's a lot of research around, strong Black girls. I know for me, when I was young, we had to clean the house. Spotless. We had to do all the laundry. I had to take care of my, younger siblings because my mother was really sick. And so that hyper parentification really bumped up against being cause in the matter. Because nobody came to save me. Oh, hold on. The guy's here with my phone. I'll be right back. Oh, hold on. Ah. Hey, thank you so much. Yes. Yay, I got my phone back. Okay, so so what I was talking about is that hyperparentification. So I had it really collapsed, right? When I'm looking at failure, right? I'm a failure. I can't do anything right. I can't figure this out. This slippery slope, right? This quicksand, right? Why? Because I didn't have that affirmation as a child. I didn't have somebody saying, you're doing a good job. I was brought down, not brought up. My parents were Marines, so, that's kind of how they think. You break you down to build you back up. So if I didn't have that thinking, right? And I'm looking at failure as more of a personal indictment on myself and my character, right? If you're asking me now to be cause in the matter on top of that, my brain the capacity isn't there, right? So what we want to look at, we have to reframe all of these things out, right? And recognize that where we are in the moment is perfect, right? And that is going to bump up against so many things. Perfectionism, not good enough, not loved, not appreciated. So many different emotions. So be gentle with yourself through this process, because most people did not learn proper emotional regulation or emotional coping mechanisms, right? We were taught to shove down our emotions and survive life, right? And so we have gotten into a habit now of surviving life, Okay, so now many of us don't know how to actually stop, right, and process our emotions. I would often say to patients, when they come in, what are your emotional coping tools, right? And some of them would be like, they'd be like, emotional coping. They'd be like working out, and then I'd be like, okay, it can't involve somebody else. Because they're like, oh, playing with my kids, hanging out with my spouse or whatever. It can't involve anybody else. So you need to give 10 emotional coping mechanisms when you have anger, when you have sadness, when you have disappointment. What are you going to do in real time, to help bring you out of it? Because it's not that you're not going to get tricked up. You're going to get triggered. You're going to be in a breakdown. You're going to be in a breakthrough. Your inner 5-year-old is going to want to absolutely, act out, and be super sad. You've got your, inner teenager who just wants to burn it all down. You've got your, 12, 14-year-old who wants to belong. And so there's all of these, committee members running around, in different stages of development, simply because most of us are underdeveloped emotionally. And so we're acting out of our emotional underdevelopment, right? I think TikTok is a good example of that, right? So, the thing is that in order for us to reclaim our food, we have to reclaim our emotions. It's just, they go hand in hand, right? Because your throat is a two-way channel. Either you're going to express yourself using emotional intelligence, or you're going to shove it all the way down and you're just going to eat for whatever reasons, or not eat, right? Or starve yourself. If you get into a habit of that, you want to check for emotional starvation. So as a child, if you are emotionally starved, it can be very comfortable for you to physically starve yourself, just because you're not used to nourishing yourself and you don't believe that you have worth, right? And so we want to look at your self-worth, your self-esteem. All of these things are going to come up with your food. All right, so full disclosure. When I first got into this profession, I literally thought with nutrition, it was just going to be nutrition. I thought, I'm going to give people diets, I'm going to teach people macros, and that's it. Like, it's going to be easy, right? Oh my gosh. So what people have collapsed their food with is wild. So let me give you kind of a couple examples. So one example, and I know I'm going a little long, I'm almost done. So one example I'll give you is, I had a patient who came in. She was probably in her mid-20s, and she had high cholesterol, hypertension, and diabetes, right? But she was a personal trainer, right? So I was like, this is weird. Why you're a personal trainer, but you have all these conditions? What happened? And so her family were farmers. And so they grew everything or whatever. And then at the end of for dinner, they had to clean the plate, right? And so she wasn't able to get up off the table, right, until her plate was clean. So then she would literally be falling asleep at the table because she didn't want to eat the food, and so she fell asleep at the table. So when she decided to leave, when she eventually left her house, she made an unconscious decision that she was not aware of until we worked together, an unconscious decision that she was never going to eat anything healthy. Because she didn't have fast food as a child, she felt deprived. She felt she didn't have any of the good stuff, right? So when she got out of her house, it was like KFC, Domino's, Chick-fil-A, it was Taco Hell. It was all of them, right? And so what happens if you're eating all of those foods? Hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, etc., right? And so I couldn't just say, okay, now you can't eat X, Y, and Z, because again, this was connected, right, to her past. This was connected to her childhood, and this was a level of control that her inner child had. Her 5-year-old was gripping on to that processed food because in her mind that was a treat, right? And so we had to really work gently with this. We couldn't just go, okay, now you're going to eat all healthy, because her palate It's high sugar, high fat, high sodium. So not only did we have to work with her on her mental and emotional state through journaling, through tapping, through mindfulness, through all kinds of things, right? But then slowly she had to powerfully decide when she was ready to add things and add things and add things. And so we didn't take anything away. She was still able to eat all of her stuff, but as we started to add the healthy things in, and it took a while, it took like a year and a half, as we started to add the things in, finally we were able to get the cholesterol down, we were able to get the hypertension down, we were able to get the diabetes away, and boom, patient was good again. However, right, again, it wasn't a physical, it was an emotional issue that was coming up. And I have thousands of stories like that. And so we want to be mindful of your emotional state and be gentle with yourself, right? So you're in a container, we're in a container, right, that we've created of intention, right? And so a lot of things are going to come up through the process, right? And a lot of things I'm sure are coming up in the process. So if they are coming up, please do not suffer in silence. Please do not hold it all in and be strong and you've got it and, carrying everybody on your back. Please communicate in the communities. Please reach out to me via chat or DM, etc., wherever you're stuck at, because I can help you to get unstuck, right? So how do we know we're stuck? When our actions are not congruent with our thoughts. So if we create an intention of eating healthy every day, but by Wednesday we're throwing it all out and ordering out to Uber, we need to probably reevaluate our thoughts or our emotions because our actions are not working, right? So eventually our actions, our sustained action over a period of time is going to build a habit, right? And so these habits then create our lifestyle, because as our habits build, eventually we create a lifestyle out of it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So exactly, because we want to add, not take away. So it's much easier for the psyche to add, right? So when we go, okay, I'm going to add more greenery. I'm going to add more protein. Right now we should be adding protein, right? I'm going to add more protein. I'm going to add vegetables. I'm going to add water. Hey, Dee, I'm going to add things, right? I'm not going to take it away. I'm not going to deprive myself. I'm not going to, not want it. Like I've been on a chocolate thing lately and I'm like, oh gosh, but I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to make sure I get some extra physical activity to afford my chocolate, right? And so, it's all about making decisions, right? And adjusting as need be, right? So remember, when you're stressed, your body is going to divert blood flow away from your digestion, which is going to affect your enzyme production, which is going to slow your gut motility, which is going to also affect your nutrient absorption. So first things first, if you're stressed, right, that's where we need to start. Meaning if you're stressed, don't try to change your food, please. Start to change your mindset. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Make sure you're, meditating, journaling, loving on yourself, supporting yourself. Work on those things first, but the food will come, I promise. And I know it's counterintuitive because we think, oh, if I don't do this, then this is going to happen. And that's not the case, right? It's a journey, not a destination. Okay, so here's the thing about coffee. So if we're craving it, we're going to ask ourselves why. So we ask ourselves, why am I craving the coffee? So is it the smell? Is it the taste? Is it a memory? Is it the warmth? Is it the comfort? Is it how it makes me feel? Really start to examine. Really start to ask yourself and go into the inquiry. Because it's not the coffee, it's what you feel from the coffee. It's the sensation you have afterwards. So as an example, I had a patient who I worked with a thyroid condition. We worked for probably about 2 years. She came to me with I've done there's a testimonial video on my YouTube about her. Anyway, so we worked together and she came to me for a thyroid condition. And so, she's thinking I'm going to give her supplements and, whatever, take some tests or whatever, which I do. However, Come to find out, she was married to an alcoholic, right? So she, and he was a bad alcoholic. So he's like in and out, of DUIs, and they have kids, and she's trying to maintain her job and all this insanity, right? So she's trying to keep the world up on her shoulders, right? And so we start going, wait a second, your thyroid is about communication. What are you not speaking? What are you not working through? Obviously, if you're not speaking, you're not eating well. So, we went through lots of different processing with her thoughts, her emotions, her actions. So fast forward, she was able to powerfully make a decision to leave the relationship. She, got a promotion at her job. She lost like 30 pounds. She was doing great. I mean, just like on a high, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, ice cream came back into her diet, right? Out of nowhere. Like, we had cleaned everything up. Everything was great. This is like just a touch base. And ice cream. I said, who wants ice cream, right? And sure enough, it was her inner child, right? Wanting that soothing. Because she was trying to date, right? And obviously having a lot of fear around dating, and oh my God, what's going to happen to me? So what does her inner child go? Oh, nope, I want to just have this ice cream just to feel good, right? And so we want to make sure, that we are present, right? Yes. So I know in like NA and AA, coffee is very much a staple, right? And so sometimes we can replace one for another, right? So again, it's not what's outside of ourselves, it's what's inside of ourselves. So we ask ourselves, right, before we consume it, right? So why am I consuming this, right? What am I gaining out of this? What organ am I feeding with this? And just start to go into the inquiry prior to you consuming it, right? And then you'll start to hear some more answers in terms of why and when and where and how and all of those things, and definitely write them down. So again, if you're stuck with your actions, meaning you're not tracking your food, or you're not tracking your pH levels, or something is not flowing, right? It's not as a response to the action. It's an emotion and a thought. So we'll keep going with this. On Saturday's class, we're going to dig deeper into emotions. We're going to dig deeper into trauma. And so it's really going to get into all the particulars about that. All right. Okay. So last bit, I know I've kept you guys for a while. We're going to get into heart rate. So hopefully you have your heart rate monitors. If you don't, I'm going to go over what heart rate monitors you can utilize. I got one, like a little ring one off the TikTok shop for like $20. So they're not that expensive. You can get them various different places for different price points, which we'll go over. So your heart rate actually measures the time in between your heartbeat, so in between each beat, and that actually tells us how your nervous system is regulating. So the higher your heart rate, the better your stress resilience. The lower your heart rate, the more you're in stress overload, which means you're in metabolic dysfunction and inflammation. Okay, so Cleveland Clinic found that the low HRV is linked to increased risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes because you're internalizing your stress. That's why they found perfectionists had greater propensity towards cardiovascular disease and heart attack because they're putting too much pressure on themselves, on their heart, and their blood. So this is an objective tool, something outside of me, something outside of you, to assess, because some people can be disassociated because they've been through stress for so long. They could think that they either are not under stress, or they have not experienced stress, or they've not experienced trauma. So here's where we also start to get into the disassociation, especially depending on if you've dealt with things, right? So if you haven't dealt with things like, let's say, post-traumatic stress, CPTSD, any sort of things like that, this is going to all start coming up when we're looking at your heart rate, because the numbers are not going to match what your thoughts are. So here's where we're going to come out of denial and start to get really self-aware. Here's where Dr. Steele becomes every MFer you could think about, because now all of a sudden all of those things that are protected, right, that your subconscious and your conscious is like, nope, we're not letting this up. Now all of a sudden there's crack in the armor. Now all of a sudden we start to see, wait a second, what you're saying and what's actually happening are not congruent. So let's talk about it. So it's kind of fun how that works. All right, so I know everybody's been, hey Deborah, how are you? Yes, so I know everyone has been so excited to get to how we fix these problems that we have as humans, right? Okay, so it's not as simple as we may think. It can be simple if you choose it to be, but we first have to recognize where our nervous system is in order to know what to do with it. Okay, so we are going to begin to look at our heart rate first and foremost, and then as we kind of move into it, we'll see where our stress response is, and then I'll teach you how to adapt it. So we'll start to work on some different breath work exercises depending if your numbers are low or high. We'll also talk about mindfulness practice. So if your numbers are, again, chronically low, that's an impulse issue, right? It's a chronic stress overload. So when you're eating, you really have to make sure that you chew thoroughly. Distractions, also you have to focus on bringing blood flow into your digestive system, because what's happened is your body is now conditioned to pull blood away from your digestive system, pull blood away from your limbs. You have to retrain your brain to do that again because it's conditioned itself to do that, right? So that's where we get into biofeedback. Again, right now we're just getting into the tracking and making sure you're tracking and getting all that set up. But I just want to tell you kind of where we're headed. And then not next week, because next week we talk about physical fitness. The week after, we're going to talk about herbs. We're going to talk about supplements that assist, with all of these things. And I'm not going to go crazy because I don't like everybody taking just things just to be taking them. But we'll start with some simple ones like an ashwagandha, holy basil, rhodiola, those sorts of things. All right. So according to the Journal of Endocrinology, deep breathing, just deep breathing, not taking anything. Just deep breathing alone can reduce your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, right? By 50%. So if you have like an Apple Watch or a Garmin, it takes it automatically. So your Apple Watch, and if you've downloaded our Holistic Life app companion, if you sync it with it, and I have to make some videos for this, but if you sync it with it, it will automatically track it. Usually with the Apple Watch, it'll pull it at like 12 a.m., 1 a.m., something like that. And so usually it'll check it automatically. You won't have to if you're wearing it on a watch. Now, if you're doing it manually, you will have to check it manually, but most of the time the wearables will test it on its own and start to collect that data for you, like your Whoop and stuff like that. In fact, I think I have a slide on which ones. Yeah. So here's some of the heart rate devices. An Oura Ring. An Oura Ring is actually, I feel like it's pretty pricey, and there's a monthly fee attached to it. So just so you know, there's a Whoop strap as well, and I think there's a watch you can use with that. The Apple Watch as well, the Garmin, and then an Elite HRV app. Again, I got a little ring off the TikTok shop. Again, $20. I've used it for like 6 months. It's been great. So yeah, and so you don't have to spend a lot of money, like $20-$30. You just need something to check your heart rate. I think I put some options in there, but I'll see. Okay, so really quick, let's understand your heart rate measurements. And again, I don't expect you to get all of this tonight, but just so you know kind of where we're going, if it's below 20, and usually it takes it for a minute long, so it'll take it for a minute, take a breath, relax, etc. A lot of times it'll do it automatically, so you don't even have to do it consciously. So it does it a lot of times when you're sleeping, which is a perfect resting heart rate measurement. So if it's below 20, that's a chronic overload, so definitely risk of illness. If it's 20 to 40, that's a poor recovery. That means your nervous system is off balance, so chronically stressed individuals. If it's 40 to 50, it's moderate, so that moderate stress. And then above that is really good. You're stress adaptive, and then even higher, like 80 is more like elite athletes. We used to hook them up to like VO2 max and all kinds of stuff. Like when they're training for these crazy, 24-hour marathons and all this stuff, you really have to get all this stuff dialed in. It's kind of wild. And then here's by age. Naturally, it decreases as we age. So I wanted to make sure people are aware of that. 20 to 29, it's going to be a little bit on the higher end. 30 to 39, 45 to 95, 40 to 49, 35 to 85, 50 to 59, 25 to 75, and then 60 plus. We want to keep it out of the teens, even if you're above 60. We want to keep that heart rate up as much as we can, because again, we want to get more blood flow circulation to your limbs. So we want to train for that. Especially too, the older, the older you are, the more challenging things you've been through in life. And so the tendency too is to internalize that. So we really want to make sure we keep your limbs, warm. So factors that affect your heart rate, things that improve it naturally are deep breathing, meditation, sleep, resting, like literally doing nothing, physical activity, regular hydration, electrolytes, anti-inflammatory whole foods, and mindfully practicing stress management. Things that lower your heart rate are chronic stress and high cortisol, poor sleep quality, dehydration, high sugar processed food, alcohol consumption, and overtraining without recovery. So those are things that will affect your heart rate. All right. So the last thing I want to go over with you, yes, breath is so important. Yeah, you want to try to have it on when you're sleeping, if you can, just so we can monitor it. But if you can't, I totally understand. It'll check it throughout the day automatically. Okay. So last thing I'm going to teach you is the poor man's food sensitivity testing. So I'm sure a lot of times when people are in holistic medicine, they are like, oh my God, food allergy testing. I want to find out what foods my body is allergic to. Okay, I've told you guys this before. Food allergy testing, number one, very expensive. Also, too, inaccurate, like very inaccurate. I cannot even tell you all of them. Name one of these companies. Inaccurate. The only ones that I found are most accurate are like Eliza Alcat. We're talking $1,500 to $2,000 for a test. So by the time I get to that, right, I really make sure that I've ruled everything out, because people are reacting not to the food, they're reacting to the food-like substances, and they're reacting to their the actual gut microbiology and those dysbiosis or imbalances in gut flora. So it's not actually the food, it's a lot of the environment. And once we clean the environment up, the body will heal and it won't be as reactive to certain things. So this is going to be your first line of defense before you go spend money on testing. Please, please, please don't spend money on testing. So it's such a waste of money. All right, so we're going to just do this simple simple pulse test using your heart rate monitor. So what you're going to do is you're going to count your heart rate. You're going to measure your heart rate over 60 seconds, right? Then you're going to put one single food in your mouth. You're not going to swallow it. You're not going to chew it. You're not going to do anything. You're just going to put it in your mouth. And then you're going to measure your heart rate again. If your heart rate goes above a 6, right, 6 and above, that lets us know that you have a stress response from that food. Your body does not like that food for whatever reason. Your pulse rate is telling you no. So this particular method was developed by Dr. Arthur Coco in the 50s, and it was a non-invasive approach to reveal hidden triggers for headaches, fatigue, and other digestive issues, because these foods, different foods can create reactions within the system, and you may not be aware of what foods that your body is actually reacting to. And so instead of, again, paying all this billions of dollars for these tests, this is a very simple way that you can use your heart rate to test for different foods. Because in the beginning, it's going to be like, oh, should I eat this? Oh, should I eat that? Oh, should I eat this? Oh, it's just going to be natural, right? No, I'm no one's guru, right? I'm a teacher, right? I have a life. I love you, but not that much, just joking. So I want you to have the skills and the tools and the knowledge, right? So Dr. Steele can really retire here in the Caribbean and relax and not just be moonlighting on TikTok and YouTube, right? Feverishly training people. So what we want to do is we want to use this as a guide to determine. So as we begin begin to get more aware, as we begin to manage our stress, manage our time, look at different things, now we're going to say, oh, you know what? I think I have a reaction when I eat gluten. I think I have a reaction when I eat dairy. I think I have a reaction when I eat fill in the blank, right? So this is a way that you can actually test, not guess, right? Because we don't guess in the functional medicine, we test. This is a way for you to test your body very simply to see if you have a reaction to food. So how does this work? Again, you're going to measure your resting pulse rate in a minute. You're going to hold that food in your mouth for 30 seconds. No chewing, no swallowing, no nothing. Then you're going to check your pulse again. If it increases above a 6, right, that lets us know that you're sensitive to it, okay? Usually you don't have to, if you have a reaction, don't continue, right? Take the food, spit the food out, whatever. However, if you have no reaction, you're going to swallow that food and you're going to wait 15 minutes and you're going to check your pulse rate again for delayed reactions. So there's different types of sensitivities to different foods. There's that immediate reaction, there's a slow mediated reaction, and then there's a really latent reaction. So we're going to check for those delayed reactions as well, okay? Only test one food at a time and on an empty stomach, and don't do any caffeine or exercise before or after, or before obviously, because then it will create that. It'll create a false positive. I even have a reaction to beef after being a non. Yeah. Well, don't force your body. If your body says no, don't brutalize it. So, if your body says no, don't try to push past and don't try to give it to it. Really, we're wanting to integrate back into our bodies, love our bodies, respect our bodies, honor our bodies. So we're not going to abuse our bodies. So if our bodies say no, we don't like this, we're going to try not to give that to our bodies. We're not going to force our bodies to do anything. That's not loving and that's not kind. We want to be loving and kind to ourselves, so we don't want to abuse ourselves, right? Sometimes it's unavoidable because, we're working through some stuff. But if you can help it, right, please, try to not do that. All right. And then how do you interpret the results? Again, if there's no change, meaning 0 to 3 elevation, you're green light, you're good, there's no sensitivity. If there's a moderate increase, like a 4 to 6 BPM, that's a yellow zone. Really be mindful of it. Don't put it in a lot, like maybe once or twice a week. And then if it's a 7 plus, it has to be eliminated out for a minimum of 3 months. And then you can test it again. Then you can try to put it back into the body and retest. You're going to start with your high allergen foods, your dairy, your gluten, your eggs, your soy, and then you can move to your corn, nuts, nightshade, shellfish, artificial additives and preservatives, although those should be a given anyway, right? So this is a way that you can be able to test certain foods to see if your body actually has reactions or sensitivities behind them, because if you are eating foods that your body has reactions or sensitivities to, your body's going to create an immunological reaction, an inflammatory process, and so that's going to lead you closer to a metabolic condition, which we don't want. So we want to make sure, that we're eating things. Now, here's the thing. If you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed with life, this is not going to be the first thing you're going to do, right? The first thing you're going to do is go to your water, go to your sleep, remember, this is a journey, not a destination. I'm going to be teaching all year, so I'm not going anywhere. And so I have to get all this information out. As you can tell, I have a lot of it to give, so I need to get it all out of my little brain. And so once I get it out, then I can truly kind of relax and chill. But so we've got some time together. We've got, at least a year before I vanish into the jungles of the Caribbean. So, we want to make sure, that we take our time with this. We're loving, we're kind, we're sweet to ourselves. Diabetes is people forgetting to be sweet to themselves, right? When I was on The Doctors, I did an episode on sugar and sugar addiction. And so it was really cute because I was talking about, the link between, sugar addictions and emotional dysregulation and the need, right, for that sweetness to happen and not having that sweetness as a child, and so wanting to recreate that as an adult. So yeah, interesting stuff. All right, here we go. Let me look. Okay, so here's some of the disclaimer, right? So there are benefits and also limitations to pulse testing. It's not a cure-all, right? It's zero cost, naturally, other than your heart rate monitor. The results are available within minutes. You don't have to go to a lab. It's personalized based off of you. It's non-invasive, requires no samples, and it reveals your hidden triggers causing symptoms. So it's awesome. I've used it in my practice for years and years and years. It's very reliable and very helpful. And so definitely use it. However, it doesn't replace medical testing. Now, again, I've used this primarily without having to do as much of the advanced food reaction testing. A lot of times it's more cleaning up the metabolic system and then the body will shift with food. So it's not really been just, oh, people are allergic. Now, naturally, people are allergic to glyphosates. They're allergic to FD&C colors, dyes. And that's normally the stuff that lab test will pick up is all the chemicals, not necessarily the food. It'll pick up food as well, but usually by that time we've weeded out most of those foods. The heart rate can also affect multiple factors. So it's not indicative. So let's say if you have, POTS, right? Or you have any sort of dysregulation or even a magnesium deficiency will affect the heart rate. So just, again, if you're doing this and you kind of get some funky results, please reach out. You also can potentially miss the delayed reactions, especially if you don't do the 15-minute test. And this is really good as just an initial screening tool, and then we'll kind of work from there. This is a tool, right, that you're going to use. So it's going to require consistent testing conditions to make sure that you're getting, an accurate reading. All right, cool. All right, so our action steps. I know we're piling on a lot now, but we're actually halfway through this course. So you guys are doing really well. Again, don't stress if you're just crash landing into it. We'll figure it out. I'm very much in the flow with everything, and I've taught for years, so I can scoop up all the little chickens as they come in. So if you're following along, you want to track your pH, so you should have your pH strips. You're going to track your food, right? You're going to then add your heart rate. So just get that down. Get the water down. Get the tracking the food down. Get the pH down, right? Get all that stuff down and then add the heart rate. Don't oh, now I got to do this. Now I got to, don't do that. Don't stress yourself out. And also we want to practice mindfulness and self-awareness. So that's mindful eating. There in the core shell, there is that workbook, 30 days to mindful eating. Please download that. It's got where you write out your food. It's got tons of questions in there. It's really, really powerful. It's a sizable workbook. So definitely work through that. It's for 30 days, and that's going to help you to kind of unbury some of these, addictions, attachments, connections that you have to food that you may not be aware of. And then on Saturday, we're going to get deeper into mind-body medicine. We're going to get into emotional healing, and we're going to get into trauma as it relates to food. So we'll get into some eating disorders as well. I've worked with a lot of different eating disorders from anorexia, like severe anorexia nervosa, to bulimia, to overeating, to restrictive eating, all kinds of different challenges with food. Again, it's how we're nourishing ourselves. So if we have a disordered way of viewing ourselves, we're going to have a disordered way of eating. Okay, so the way that we're eating and the way that we're feeding ourselves, again, is a direct correlation with our self-worth, our self-love, our self-acceptance, and our self-appreciation. So it's going to take some time to shift those reactions, those responses. So please be easy. Please, be gentle. This is a marathon, not a sprint. I cannot even tell you that enough because there's a lot to unpack for sure. All right, and back again. All right, so if you have not joined our course by now, go ahead and click the link in the bio, scroll down. There's a form, Intro to Holistic Medicine. You should have gotten a couple emails this week. You should have gotten an email with all the information for this week, different videos and stuff in it, playlist and that sort of thing to keep you, aware. Also, it will have... Oh, yeah, where you can pay if you want to pay for your cert now. Let's see. There's something else in there that I was okay. So once you get the email, there'll be an opportunity to choose your group. Your group is where you'll have your discussions in. So we have 3 groups. If you want to kind of go on with me and become a holistic health coach, that cohort is for you. The holistic lifestyle is for people that want to learn how to heal themselves and their communities, their families. And then Pure Black is for those of Afro, Indigenous, or Black descent. That way, because we're going to get into specific conversations around trauma, intergenerational trauma, and transgenerational trauma. So, there's nuance to that. So please be respectful in any of the groups. Once you're in the group, so this is the holistic lifestyle community, there is to the right, there's your, different resources. I did put in an intro to discussions one, so I kind of put them all the discussions under one, but bear with me, I'll go in and fix it. So there'll be a discussions tab, then the course will actually be under your learnings tab. So there's a little intro to holistic medicine. If you want to pay for your cert, it's actually this collective right here. Every month, I put together my collectives of all of my knowledge and wisdom. So January, I worked on mindset, so that's the one for that, because you need mindset for all this stuff. February, I did one on cardiac health and hypertension, all that. I'm just finishing that up, so that'll pop up here shortly. And then this month is all about nutrition. So I'm pull kind of all the content and pull it all together from various different resources and lead magnets and all kinds of stuff. So this is where a lot of the courses live. Also, too, if you have the app, there's also a lot of courses on there, too. I just want to reframe this out, and then I promise I will, release you back out into the wild. We're talking about holistic medicine. Holistic medicine is very different than conventional medicine, right? Because it's very complex, right? We look at treating the root cause. So when we're treating, let's say, our food, right? It's more than likely not the food. If the food is dysregulated, it's more than likely either your mindset or your emotions or your motivation, right? Or your time or your money, right? So we look at those different causes and we have to create a solution for those causes, right? So definitely reach out. I cannot stress that enough, because even if I didn't address it, doesn't mean that there's not a solution for it, right? Because in holistic medicine, we have tons of modalities, 7 degrees in my field, hundreds of certifications. There's really not much in the holistic health space that I haven't experienced or done or whatever. And so there's lots of modalities that we can choose from, which is very different than conventional medicine, where it really only has pharmaceutical, surgeries, or procedures. That's it. They don't, no nutrition, no lifestyle, no mind body stuff. Now, some of them will try to get into it, but a lot of it's lip service. And I say that with all due love and respect, simply because holistic medicine, there is a very unique way that we practice this. It's not just giving people supplements. And a lot of times what'll happen with conventional providers is, because their training is diagnose and manage, they bring that same mindset into holistic medicine of diagnose and manage. But instead of using a pharmaceutical, they'll give you a supplement instead. That's not holistic medicine, right? Holistic medicine is, we look at this interconnected system. We look at, okay, so if we want to change the food, we need to look at the emotional, the habits, the actions, the behaviors, the emotional state, the mindset, the finances, the relationships. We have to look at all of it, because if we don't look at all of it, if we don't pull up every single, stone, we're not going to get to the root cause. It just won't happen. So because of that, we tend to spend more time with our patients. Our patients are more active participants in their care. We have a relationship, right? So, so it's not like, I'm the doctor, I'm all knowing, I know everything, and you're the patient, you're lowly and you know nothing. It's not like that. We're both coming to the table, because you know your body better than anybody, right? I'm trying to extract information out of you to try to make sense of it, organize it for you, and give it back to you. That's the goal. So you do need to be an active participant in your healing. But once you get into the habit of it, again, it's a practice. It becomes a lifestyle. It becomes just a way of being. It's not even efforting anymore. It may seem like a lot of effort in the beginning, but then over time it gets easier and easier because the body does have an innate ability to heal itself, and it can and will heal itself if given the right environment. Our job is to create an environment that's conducive for healing. We use a lot of data in our practice, far more than conventional providers do. So I'm going to teach you subjective data, which is all the nuance. So again, make sure you complete the nutritional assessment questionnaire, because that one goes over all of the nutrient deficiency symptoms that you would have. And then we combine it with our objective, which is our pH and our heart rate. We're going to put those two together, create a mixed method study. So who needs the CDC? We got the CDC right here. So you're going to be testing yourself. You really want to get, at least 2 weeks worth of readings before you evaluate of, your food, your water, all the things. And so take your time with this. Again, kick back, relax. We'll be here a while because we have to look at all the aspects of the human, not just one. So, all right, boys and girls, friends and foes, we have come to the end of our class for today. I know I kept you guys super late today. I don't normally do that, but as you can tell, a lot of great stuff to go over, how stress impacts digestion, metabolism, and eventually your food choices. So hopefully this intrigued you. So you're gonna get it in the core shell. So have you signed up for your community yet, Daphne? You're so welcome. Thank you, Full Moons. Thank you, Melanin. Yes, exactly. So and last week it was really slow downloading, so I haven't put last week's in there yet. But I sent that in the email today, let you know. So they're going to be in the core shell in the community. So once you get into your community, hold on, let me. Once you sign up for the class with the form, you'll get the email, and then you'll choose your community. And once you choose your community, I'll go back to the communities tab. There will be, so once you choose one of these, and you can choose one or more, you don't have to just choose one. There'll be a learnings tab. So this is how it looks on the computer. It's also on the phone as well. So because it is an app, I just have not registered it completely with Apple yet to be on the App Store. Because there's still configuration that has to be done. So that's why you have to get it through a direct link from me. But you'll get the link in your email. You'll just be able to sign up. Once you sign up for your community, then under the learnings tab, it's right there. So it's this pink intro to holistic medicine, and you see it says open. You'll click on that, and once you click on that, it'll have all the weeks in there. I have every week done in there. The only thing is the webinars from last week aren't put in there, like I said, but they should be put in there by the end of this week, along with the ones for today. I usually will leave up the replay on YouTube for like the rest of the week, and so you can kind of go in there, YouTube, just to make it easy, and then I close it to the general public and then put it in the core shell. So just so you're there. Yes, so the form did you sign up for so when you go to my link in my bio there and you scroll down, there's a form that says Intro to Holistic Medicine. Is that the one that you filled out? Because if you just filled out like a newsletter, you're gonna be in my general pop email. Yeah. So, are you in a community? Yeah, for sure. Tata Kisses. Have you chosen a community yet, or did you get an email that had a community to choose? I'll wait till. Yeah, so once you fill out the form, it'll automatically send you the email. Once you get the email, you'll be able to. So did you fill out Intro to Holistic Medicine? Because it shouldn't have said you'll hear from us soon. When you fill out the form, it'll say like check your spam, and then the email. So if you didn't receive the email, you want to check your spam folder. So you should receive an email that says like choose your community experience or something like that. And then it will have all the options. I just sent an email out yesterday. Did you receive an email yesterday? If you didn't receive an email or you're having challenge, if you can send me a DM, and then I can assist you from there, because I can look up your email information. If you didn't receive the email, please check your spam though, because the email should go out pretty much instantly. It's not it's not like a wait. I did that usually in the beginning of the course, and then it, then I got caught up in stuff. Yeah, so check your spam, and if it's not in your spam, just shoot me a DM. And please let me know if you're actually in the community so far, because if you're in the community, you have access to the course. So, so yeah, just let me know. All right, my loves. Okay, so nothing in your spam either. I'm not quite sure where you. Yeah, just send me a DM, and I'll help you one-on-one. All right. Well, I will see you guys tomorrow morning for morning flow at 6 a.m. if you join me for that. You don't have to. And then Thursday tomorrow, yeah, just send me a DM. I'll help you out. Tomorrow I teach a lunch and learn at 12 o'clock. It's breaking free from the standard American diet. So that class, I'm going to go over all the chemicals in your food and what they do to your body and how to look all that stuff up to see what you've been putting on your body, in your body, over your body, around your body. I'm going to give you lots of information about that. That class is not a part of your course. It's just a lunch and learn class, so don't feel pressured or stressed or obligated or any of that stuff. But this week, this lunch and learn, I'm going to go over that. So I'll also be next week, and I sent the email out kind of going over the class. I think next week I'm going to go over more about more extended information about heart rate, and then I get a lot more into trauma and how trauma impacts your nervous system and all that kind of stuff. So, yay! All right, everyone. Well, you have an amazing evening. I've had such an amazing time teaching you guys this evening. And I will see you all tomorrow morning, bright and early at Morning Flow. So thank you for helping me